start the Rental Housing Advisory Board meeting. Today, we do not have our vice chair or our chair attending, so I will call the meeting to order, and then we will discuss, we will take a vote who would like to nominate to run the meeting today as kind of a fill-in vice chair. So with that, I will call the meeting to order. I'll do roll call. Christensen. Erickson.
Here.
Ernst. And then we have a vacant spot. Gulig. Hobbs.
Here.
Hutchinson. DeValtis.
Here.
Lord.
Here.
So with that, I would accept nominations for one of the Rental Housing Advisory Board members to run the meeting today.
I will be happy to run the meeting.
I need a
Thank you,
nomination.
Linda.
Oh,
so
I
somebody,
I'll
Okay.
nominate Linda.
okay,
I sorry.
I'll second Linda.
okay,
All right.
okay. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Should,
Okay.
I think I'm going to move down.
Yeah, join us.
Okay.
Shouldn't be so far apart here, right? Okay.
All right. Well, Chairperson Javaltis, you have the agenda. The next item would be citizen statements.
It doesn't look like we have any citizen statements today.
Correct.
So, we'll go down to the next item, approval of special meeting minutes. Can I ask for a motion to accept the meeting minutes from our special meeting?
So moved. Second.
Second?
Is there any discussion on the minutes? If not, then we'll call for an approval of the minutes.
Erickson,
Aye.
Hobbs,
Aye.
Javaltis,
Aye.
Lord.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Number 5 on the agenda, partner organization update. First one is the rental assistance program. Usually, Lou Shearer presents what's happening at AdvoCap with the rental assistance program, but she's unavailable today. So we have a handout to look at.
There was an email with the handout too. She kind of gave a quick summary of some of the data that is in here. So if there are any questions that you have from this, we can certainly get in touch with Lou as a follow-up and let the advisory board, provide some input that Lou provides if there's a question.
Any discussion? It looks like she's saying that there's nothing really new to talk about.
My only discussion, I just wondered when this will probably sunset, you know? I mean, what the demand is for these funds, you know?
I'm not sure. I know that there's different pots of money for these funds, and I know even like through the CDBG, we do have some funds to help these folks. So I'm not sure if there's a sunset date or not.
Yeah, I've talked to Lou about that.
Sure.
I do remember Lou saying that the program was to last for 5 years.
Oh, okay,
Correct.
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, but I don't know if that means that you just keep going if there's,
Like until you run out of funds or.
yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah.
because it's well-funded, you know, it's,
I found a few locations
Oh.
for takeout coffee nearby. Near you.
sorry about that.
Well, if there's any questions that any of the members have, please feel free to let me know and we can get in touch with Lou.
It is good to note that 60 people have reached out for the Wisconsin Help for Homeowners program. That is a new program, so it's good that that's moving along. Okay, the Winnebago County Eviction Prevention Task Force, eviction data.
Yes, so I have, in your packets, there should be a colored graph that I put together. Since we're in person for this, I tried to adjust how I show the data, so I'm open to feedback, but, and thank you for printing this out in color, it's helpful. So this is data updated through April 1st. So you can see the number of evictions filed each year, and where we're at so far for 2022. So you can see we had the highest number in 2019 and has kind of tapered off since then. And then the second graph shows the percentage of eviction filings that actually resulted in a judgment of eviction, where the eviction actually occurred and the tenants were evicted. So you can see this data lags a little bit, so I have to go back, a few months ago as court cases are kind of going through the system. But you can see we kind of average around that 50% mark. And then the last graph on the page, I show the differences in evictions filed monthly from 2020 and 2021. So you can see 2020 was much more volatile, I'd say. 2021 starts to, be relatively more stable throughout the months. And we do typically see more evictions filed in the summer months. So just wanted to give kind of bigger picture data. Hopefully that's helpful. Any questions?
Well, you have the data of how many evictions ended up in, judgments. It seems to me that I remember previous years that these percentages around in 2021 are a little higher than the ones that actually ended up. There's less filings, but am I getting, I don't remember the stats.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it was more like 40% ended up in judgments for eviction, where now it looks like we're averaging more around the 50% or even more than that.
Yeah.
Would I be right in saying that there's less eviction, there are less eviction filings, but the more people that are getting filings, there's a higher amount of judgments?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's accurate. I think in 2020, from the data I pulled, for the entire year, averaged about 17%. And then for 2021 was 51%. So yeah, so even though there were fewer evictions filed in 2021, more of those filings ended up in an actual eviction judgment.
But at least that's a good sign, because I think because so many times, regretfully, it ends up being filed just to settle it before, maybe there is some mediation going on before the filing.
Yeah, and that's what I've noticed going through CCAP is many of the cases, it'll say a stipulated dismissal, which usually means that the two parties come to some sort of agreement, or that it was sent to mediation. So it seems like that might be working. More filings are going through mediation first.
Well, from a landlord's perspective, many times judgments aren't that collectible in the first place. If you create a payment plan, it might be better for both, so. Which I think it was a stipulated dismissal is that. You pay so much per month and then you
Yeah.
get caught back up.
Some sort of
Yeah.
payment agreement. Any other?
Thank you.
So there's no way to estimate this for the city of Oshkosh? This is Winnebago County,
Yeah.
but we don't have any clue how many are.
That would
the
take
city.
a bit of time and digging, yeah. That's been something I've been interested in too, but we'd have to, there's not an easy way to filter in CCAP by city,
Okay.
but
Okay.
something to
Unless you go
consider.
case by case, right?
Yeah.
If you want to do that,
through.
that's.
Right, that's okay, I just was curious.
That's a good question, though.
If it's,
Are you still, I was involved in some of these, and it just seems a lot of these eviction task force or reduction task force, it just kind of dwindled off. So where is that at right now?
It's kind of in the implementation phase, so
Okay.
we're no longer meeting actively, but Conflict Resolution Center, Legal Action, I think they're now figuring out how to, work better together during the court system. So I think
So
there's
could I
more
get in the loop
mediation.
on that? Would I call Mike Ross?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah.
Any further discussion?
I guess I have a question, because I agree with everything that's been said here, that it works best for landlords and renters to reduce evictions, obviously. That's, great for everybody. When somebody goes to file an eviction, do we already let them know at that time, what their options are, like the mediation? Because that seems so helpful. And some landlords, I'm sure, would love that instead. They'd rather get paid and people would rather keep their housing. So if we're not already doing that, it sounds like we are, but we definitely should.
I think the biggest thing in eviction is to get ahead of them. Because so many of these things happen in the courtroom or out in the hallway of the courtroom and they reach an agreement. If you get ahead of it, I think from a landlord's perspective, sometimes they'll keep letting the rent get behind and then the tenant can't get it back anyway if he's up like 3-4 months behind. So if there's a way to not let that happen, so we get ahead of the evictions, rather than the snowball going downhill.
Sure, but obviously, I'm not sure what the balance is or, what the rules are around, let's say somebody's rent is late for the first time or even the third time or I guess it does matter the number of times, but for purposes of example, maybe their first or second time, it's late, it's the fifth. Is there a rule or a law or something that says what date people can put that eviction on the door, or it's really just up to the personal landlord? Like, I get what you're saying. It is, yes, get out ahead of it, because who's going to be able to, make a payment plan for $3,000 or $4,000? It's going to be, they're going to feel disheartened, like hopeless. But what's that balanced line where, folks get reasonable notice and is fair to everybody, right?
Well, the other thing is, if the agreement can't come to an agreement, it would be better for the tenant to say, okay, this isn't working for me, I can't make the rent, and move out before they have a court record as well.
Right, so that they can get another unit
What's that?
in the future, so that they don't have an eviction on their record.
You come to an agreement and say, I can't afford the place, I have to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than waiting to get evicted and then the sheriff coming, that doesn't work well for anybody.
Right, and I agree. I guess I'm wondering, having thankfully never been in the situation where I've been personally evicted, but I've heard stories of folks who, it's the second and there's a notice on their door, not necessarily in Oshkosh, but I guess I would hope that that wouldn't happen in Oshkosh, and that instead we would have, like you're saying, a compromise of like, well, hey, here's a phone call or an email, can you actually do this rent, or do we need to talk about changing things? And then, helping transition them into more affordable housing through, whatever means we have.
Yeah.
See, there isn't that many tools in the law. There's a 5-day pay or vacate, and then you can go right to eviction.
That's what I was wondering is, so it
Okay.
is 5-day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, I've never had an eviction, so I can't tell you all the other process.
Sure.
But, and I've attended classes and I forget because I don't need that info. But, yeah, I think there's got to be some more tools in between there.
Right, because I think we can all agree, 5 days of notice on the door, that's not as helpful to either party as mediation would be. So perhaps it could be paired with, I don't know, put some documents there too, like, hey, this isn't just the yellow slip or whatever it is, it's also, if you really can make this work, here's a way, or if you want to, or if you care to. Just having, I think we can all kind of agree that a lot of this has to do with getting the right information in front of the right eyeballs at the right time, and that's really hard to do. But I think we can get creative,
People don't educate themselves until a crisis situation comes up.
Yeah.
And I think you really have to tell people, don't get that eviction on your record.
Right.
Even if you have to move out, don't get that on your record. And the way the market is right now, with the shortage of affordable housing, you have an eviction record, you're probably not going to find anybody that'll rent to you. Because there'll be somebody that doesn't have an eviction on their record.
And I think there's some things that our task force was working on, providing kind of messaging for landlords that, if someone's at risk of getting evicted soon, here's the information about the conflict resolution center, legal action, like here's places you can go so that we don't have to get to that point.
That's good, because I would imagine, if anybody would be most educated on it by nature, it would be the landlords, because y'all have chosen this as a way to live your life, whereas renters don't choose to be renters, it's that or nothing. So what I'm saying is, like, I'm glad that, I think it's reasonable for us to ask landlords to, out of the two, of course, ask everybody, but realistically, landlords hopefully have a responsibility to, like, read that information and to know that information and to be the leaders charging the mediation, right? Because out of all parties, they're the ones who, by nature, are most educated on the subject matter. There's no class you have to take to get an apartment. You just are born into a system where you need to live in a place. But to be a landlord is a choice. So I would hope that those making that choice would also read the documentation. And I guess we're here to kind of ask who's making that documentation fantastic and how is it available and how are we getting it to all the landlords so that they have that information that will help them and their tenants.
Well, the regretful part is, there's 10 times as many mom and pop lenders as there is business landlords. So they're going to work every day and they got in a couple apartments somewhere. So what happens is they're not always that educated because it's very much a sideline. Yet they're a major supplier cumulatively of our affordable housing, especially naturally occurring. There's no government subsidy, but it's a good and bad thing, because a lot of those folks aren't keeping up to speed because they're really not making much money. And it's kind of a sideshow, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'd also like to add that programs are designed, unfortunately, in such a way that people have to be really behind or almost getting ready to be evicted in order to qualify for assistance. Like even this rental program with AdvoCap. So it's unfortunate that people that design programs don't head things off at the pass either. You don't qualify unless you are behind, rather than somebody saying, look, this is my life circumstance, and this is where I'm headed. Can we get assistance now, rather than waiting till all the balls drop? That's just
Well,
sort of.
it's a lot more costly to try and rehouse somebody after lots housing than to keep them in housing.
For the county, and just in general,
Yeah, so.
Okay. There's no further discussion. We'll go on to inspection staff update, social media report.
So I guess whatever information you want me to put out on the Facebook page, you just have to send it to me so I can post things. I mean, we post the agenda and some other things we've found, but we're looking for you guys to give us our content, so.
Yes, I myself looked at the Facebook page yesterday, and it was sort of overwhelming. There's just a lot of pictures with a lot of information, and you can't see if you click on a picture. Until you click on a picture, you don't know what it looks like because it's all this writing. What I would suggest is that at some point when we don't have a lot on our agenda, that perhaps we can go online ourselves and look at the Facebook page and maybe say what needs to be deleted and what doesn't, because to me, it's just sort of overwhelming and you really can't see everything that's on there. I don't know if I'm looking at the right page, but I pulled up this board's Facebook page. I think I was looking at the right page, although I could be mistaken. So that's what I mean. Can you show us what that might look like maybe in the future, what the Facebook page looks like? Because I go on it and it seems like it's overwhelming. There's just so many squares of pages. Has anybody else looked at it lately?
It might just be the formatting with Facebook when we post something, so we'd have to take a look and see if there's a way we can clean it up.
Right, so I guess that's my suggestion.
Yeah,
is
I
to
mean,
like-
we'll look to see, but it might be something we aren't able to do, but we'll take a look.
Okay, that's my thought on it.
So I think the big thing is just send information when we have things come through or events or programs, we cross-promote it with all of our different Facebook pages. But if you guys see article or anything out there, feel free to send it to us and we'll get it out there.
Thank you. So, so for future reference, we'll put this on the agenda again for next time, and we'll see what you found on the Facebook page, if you needed to clean it up or that kind of thing. Correct? Any more discussion on that?
Do you do the social media for many boards or just for this one? Cool.
Just this one.
Nice to meet you. And I was just thinking, perhaps people don't make citizen statements because they don't know how or forget that they can, and that might be something to put on social media. It's super easy to share, and if we get it, shared in the right groups, we might get a lot of folks that are bringing their questions to the table.
Any other discussion on that? No? Okay. Your name is Casey, correct?
Correct.
Okay, Casey. Complaint-based rental inspections, 2017 to 2021.
So it looks like we did a report for how many tenant-based complaint inspections were done. So in 2017, we did 58 with 350 violations. 2018, 60 with 359. 2019, 74 with 440. 2020, 60 with 315. And 2021, 75 cases with 402 violations.
So what does that average out then, per case? How many violations do you, find per case typically?
Right now, the last 2 years was 5.5.
Okay. And is that going up or
It
down
came down a little, it was 7 in
in
2017.
Okay,
Yep, so it came down a little bit. I've done 10 complaint-based this year so far with 54, so that's 5.4.
it's about the same, okay.
What are usually the most common types of violations or things that you're seeing?
Smoke COs, handrails, guardrails, windows, electrical, plumbing issues.
And are those getting remedied pretty quickly, or is it taking,
It just depends on the property.
Like, is there enforcement in place for that? Okay.
Yeah, we have a program where when we send out a violation notice, it kind of queues up the next ones where it sends a reminder to, check in to see if, the items were taken care of. So, we also have a way to see, if it was remedied within the first 30 days or, depending, like Casey said, what the violation is, it might have different timeframes. So we do keep track of all those to ensure that we continue to work with, the owners to, bring the violations up to code.
I have a question for you now. On these cases, now, how, do you kind of know how many landlords or where you see multiple cases with certain landlords? Or do you have any inkling of what that is? You know what I'm saying, is there
Right.
certain ones that have multiple cases, and then others, obviously, most do not, obviously. But are there chronic that you're going back to?
There are a few that we see more often than others.
Yeah. So when you say 75 cases, do you think that would be like 50 landlords? Worth half that, you think, about?
It's hard to say.
Hard to say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we could do a report on that. Find
Yeah,
out.
we could see maybe the next meeting, I'll jot some notes here and see if we can dive in a little bit deeper with the data to get a little bit more, is it this, like you said, are there repeat offenders out there, with their properties?
Yeah, so we have about 12,000 units in Oshkosh, is that correct? Rental units, is that about right?
13.
Yeah,
13 or so,
1,000,
yeah, give or take, yeah.
Okay. And, okay, so we have 12,000, and about how many landlords is, I've heard it's like, some people say it's 800, some say it's 1,200, some say it's more than that. I'm just trying to get a feeling of how many landlords and how many units and how many complaints, with 12,000 units and 75 complaints, and I'm just wondering how many per these, there's chronic landlords or a better feel to it,
Yeah, we would have to definitely do a bigger data dive with that to
I know
run
that's,
that,
I was
yeah.
just getting in,
Sure.
It's not really necessary, I was just
Okay.
wondering you had a feel for it.
Yeah.
These 75s, are they coming from, 20 people, or are they coming from, I know it's not 75, so I imagine it's 50 maybe,
Yeah. No, we would be able to see who received the violation notice.
Yeah.
And kind of go off of there. So that
Yeah.
would be an easy way for us to.
How many landlords do you think there's in Oshkosh? Should go from 800 to 1,200 to, what is your best guess?
I couldn't even, I
Don't
don't
know.
know.
Okay.
I'd have to look at, the information we have.
Okay,
And even then, it's really hard to get, because sometimes, somebody's living somewhere and they just let somebody stay there. Well, technically they're landlord. So it's a moving target.
well, I read IRS data, and there's a lot of people that, don't report.
Well, and
They're renting
there's
out a
that,
room
yeah.
and things
Yeah.
like that too, so they're not officially a landlord, or they don't see
Right.
themselves as that, so.
Yeah, we are, as somewhat part of our rental registry program, we do send out notices. We have in our database, if there's a home where the owner and like the mailing address is different, we send out a note, in a letter and just say, are you renting this? And if they say yes, then, we put that on our kind of renter registry. And if they say no, or there's some situations like, oh, it's, my mom, it's in a trust, or, there's other situations, then that doesn't go on there. But we do try to keep track as best as we can.
I don't know if that ties into this or number 3, the biggest complaint I hear right now is I get a 5-day notice and they send it on Friday and I get it on Monday and I've got to get it done by Wednesday. I don't have enough time. I can't hire people to do it. I mean, if we could, I know last year I had a sump pump hose come off and it was going, they went down the street and that's fine. And they sent me an email at like 10 in the morning at 2 o'clock, I had the hose back on. And they said, wow, that's great. I just hope that we could do that more by email because a
Sometimes
lot
we
of
have
people
it,
are saying,
yeah.
5-day notices, let's say they send it out on Good Friday and it might get there a day before if you're lucky.
Right.
So, that 5-day notice is kind of like we're talking about 5 days for quit or pay. 5 days is not very long,
Especially with the mail service.
Especially if it's
Right.
being mailed. So I don't know if we can improve on that because, in the real world, I mean, now, you've got almost everything electronically.
We try to collect as many emails as possible, so in your situation, they have your email, we'll email it, but we don't have
Yeah.
it in all cases.
Yeah, yeah. I just wonder if there would be a drive to do that because
We're
I hear
trying to
people get
collect
really
this,
going,
yeah.
I only have 48 hours to correct this now,
Right. Yeah. And we
So-
try to work with you when folks do call, we obviously encourage people if they do receive a notice and they aren't able to accommodate, the request, call us. We'll try to work with you. The idea is that there is momentum to get it
Sure.
done, that there's a good faith effort to complete the work.
Do you have that right in that 5-day notice? Okay. Because I know some people, that's all they read.
Sure.
And then they get, so, okay. But yeah, I was hoping that maybe, I don't know if you send out one by, I remember you sending one out by paper to myself and my tenants, and I had already fixed that afternoon, and so they said, hey, what about this? And I said, that was already fixed the day we got it, don't worry about
Yeah.
it, so.
Yeah, that's good.
I think it's a good point, Don, that as much as we can go electronically, the better, because it is snail mail nowadays.
Yeah.
It is. It goes, our mail used to be in Oshkosh, and now it goes down to Milwaukee and back.
Yeah.
So if there can be a push to do things electronically, I think that's a great idea.
Or even just a phone call, right?
Well, we don't have phone numbers.
Yeah.
All we have
Oh.
is an address.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
if we
Okay.
have any of those tools, we do use it.
Oh,
We
good.
do try to get in touch with folks, but sometimes we just don't have that information.
Right.
Sure.
So when you do the registry, maybe you can make sure that that's asked for, that an email is asked for, and would it be okay, like the question, would it be okay?
Sure.
If we contact you by email?
Yep, so we are trying to collect as many as possible right now to build up that database.
In landlorddom, when you give a 5-day notice and you can mail it, put it on the door, and you can email it. The wise thing to do is send it all 3 ways. You know? You can't miss it, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're behind in rent, it can be about something else.
Well, right.
So, a duplication in this would be a good thing.
I agree.
I had one more question about the inspections. I'm a bit of a map nerd, so do you show kind of where the most violations occur in the city, or do you have some sort of like visual?
Yeah, we have done that. I don't know if you were on council, well, you probably have. We do kind of like that housing report card, and we look at a lot of different factors, and one of those are complaints. And then we also break it down to like how the complaints come in. Is it, we get a call? Is it somebody was driving by? Those sort of things. So we do track that, and we can, look at that from a GIS standpoint and put it onto a map.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you want that information? Next meeting?
Is that
Kinda like to
readily
see.
accessible?
I would
or-
have to let you know.
Okay.
I mean, but
And
it is
if-
something that we could look at, yeah.
Okay.
It does take some analysis and definitely takes some time to put that together.
Yeah, and I was just curious, and if it, helps us target some education or,
Well, I mean, that's kind of how we came up with the rental registry with those areas. And that's kind of the next item we were just going to talk about too. So, yeah,
Okay.
we have used the data in that way.
Okay.
I've had folks bring to my attention, just people I know in town that rent, they've had some issues, they're afraid of reporting those issues because they're like, I can live with it if, it means not putting a bad taste in my landlord's mouth about me right now in this market. And so I get that, and that's sad, and it shouldn't be that way, but I understand, where they're coming from. The Inspection Services Division that enforces the housing codes, that says if your dwelling's in disrepair, they can perform an inspection at your request, et cetera, and contacting the city, things like that. Are those ways, are they channels that protect the renters from recourse from a landlord who's like, I'd rather have someone in there that doesn't complain about a leaky sink or just any reason? Because what I understand is it's at will if it doesn't, you don't have a lease, right?
There is things in place for that.
Sorry?
For retaliation, yeah, it's in the law.
Oh, good, okay. So like it's documented, but then we get into like, do we have people to help enforce that law? Because again, the average renter probably doesn't know where to start.
Let me give you an example.
Yeah,
Okay. So you call the inspector and something happened and you're a month-to-month tenant. A tenant can give a 28-day notice for no reason to move out, and so can the landlord. Okay? So you can try to tie that 28-day notice to the complaint, or how are you going to do that? So
Right.
it's one of those things that's difficult to do,
yeah,
because either party can end a month-to-month lease with a 28-day notice, with no reason, see, in the law.
yeah, like, but they don't have to say what the reason was necessarily. Like, I think we all agree, like, it could or it could not be softly connected to the complaint. And that's that gray area that's really hard to track, that if there was, like, I don't know, is contacting the city anonymously and then having the city put something on the door anonymously? Like, I guess at the end of the day, we're always going to find out what tenant complained about what, because they have to go into that unit. But I'm just curious about how we can help solve that problem.
Well, and that's been the purpose of this board all along. That's why this board was sort of set
Sure.
up, because of problems that tenants were having with landlords and them being fearful to complain about things, and that's why we've made brochures, that's why we have this tenant and landlord's rights brochure.
Yeah.
So we've been working on
We're
this.
doing a good job. I think this is really
Yes,
empowering to
yes.
people that read this and see, wow, there's actually places that have my back if something goes down that shouldn't have gone down,
Yeah,
you know?
so,
That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah, it's been a problem, and so that's our work.
Good.
Casey, do you want to just jump in and?
Yeah, so for inspections, when tenants call and they say, well, I don't want them to know I called, that explain to them, well, I just can't walk into your house. So, you know, you have to let me in, or your roommate, or, you know, somebody upstairs, downstairs, if it's a duplex. We're not just gonna walk in to look for issues. Someone has to let us in. So, I mean,
But like the tenant could let you in,
right.
because it's their, they're renting the unit.
Right, but, you know, they're worried about getting retaliated against, or, you know, not letting the landlord know that they called us. I'm like, well, I just don't walk into a house, so somebody who lives there had to let me in. You know what I mean?
Oh, fair enough. So you're saying like at the end of the day, if a landlord gets a report, they're going to know it was a tenant. Yeah, exactly. So I agree with what you said, Linda. That's why I think it's so important we have this foundational, the list of resources, and it's very clear and it's very accessible. I don't know whose idea it was to buy the bus board ad, but we should do that. I think that's great. Or like something, just make it so obvious, the advertising that we have these resources, because I don't think people know about these enough. And that's good for the social media posts.
Well, tenants don't call landlords they don't call when they have a repair all the time until it's the 11th hour too,
Yeah.
And well, the furnace has been acting up for a couple of weeks, but when it got to be 15 degrees below zero, then it really got to be a problem.
Oh, no.
And so they called when it was 15 below zero, and so people don't like people in their unit, the landlord or anybody,
Yeah.
And so that can be a problem, yeah.
So, should we move on to the rental registry inspection program?
So we are planning on sending out letters again, starting the week of April 25th to, I believe it's Section B, which is the south side of the river, to start the program up again, since we took the 2-year break from COVID.
Can you briefly explain the program for our new board member?
Sure, so it's a program where we send out letters to the tenants and ask them if they'd like us to do a rental housing inspection, and it goes over the health and safety issues for a unit. So you're making sure they have working smoke and CO detectors, handrails, guardrails, electrical and plumbing are in good condition, good roof, heating system, things of that nature.
So
And
it's a program to head things off at the pass.
so,
That's fantastic.
yep.
I'm sorry?
I said that's fantastic. I love that. And I thank you, Linda, because I didn't know that was a thing.
So if we do find violations, we send the notice to the owner to have them fixed within 30 days. And extensions could be asked for if they need it to be. And then if they get everything done in the time allotted, there's no charge. If we go back and still find the same issues, we do charge fees for that. And then they would stay in the program. If we go through one time and there are no violations, they come out of the program for 5 years. So the property wouldn't be re-inspected for 5 years.
So what area you were starting in? You said south of the river?
South of the river.
So everybody south of the river?
Yes, and then we did do some
It's-
before.
Is it the
Yep.
whole, I mean,
It's the, we have sections and we have the map. It's on our website.
That's a really shareable social media map.
Right.
We can put it on
Sure.
any number of things, yeah.
And what how many letters do you send out at a time?
Typically 100.
About 100, and then you get how many replies?
I believe it was like between 5 and 10.
Okay. And of that 5 and 10, how many actually end up in inspections?
I think there were only a handful that didn't have any violations, so if we do 7 inspections, maybe
7?
6 or all 7 have an issue.
Okay. Thank you. Reason I asked is I live in a duplex and I have a duplex next door on 10th Street. I don't know if you're in my area or not, so.
well, when will the letters be going out?
The week of April 25th.
Okay, watch your mailbox.
Yeah, we'll see.
Any more discussion on the rental registry inspection program? If not, we'll move on to the public information campaign. This brochure that we've been working on It looks like a little work has to be done to make sure it gets all on 2 pages. That's just
Yeah.
my first comment about it. My second comment about it is that I think there needs to be some information with regard to the student housing. I looked at their website, the UW Oshkosh Off-Campus Housing webpage. And actually, it's off their UW Student Association website. And they actually partner with Rent College Pads, Inc., and use a virtual housing marketplace to teach students how to be good renters and what to look out for when they're renting. There's actual houses on there to rent. So it's a pretty good website. So I think adding that information, if we can get it into the 2 pages, I think would work well for students. They have like virtual videos that they can listen to and watch. So a lot of rentals in Oshkosh are student housing, so I think it would benefit them if we had something on here with regard to their webpage.
So we need to figure out what to cut from this, right? It's just too long. It's beautiful, but it's too long. Especially if we're going to add anything about, which we
Right.
should, because or it should be its own brochure, but it's hard
Well,
to
I
say.
think just adding it to resources for students would be helpful.
Oh, like just where there's room under the resource list?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, any other discussion about the pamphlet?
Was this the week we were hoping it would be done?
Yeah.
I know, we should probably finish it now then and come up with some edits so that we can get to printing it, huh?
Well, at least we're meeting once a month now. So,
That
Oh, fair
has
enough.
not, I don't think
No?
we've determined that.
oh, we haven't.
No, I mean, I think that was a special workshop last month, so I don't know if, we didn't vote on that. I think it was just a discussion item, but we had the special one, so. Like I said, we'd have to go and change the ordinance, and it's a longer process to change the meeting dates.
We were
We could
just
have a
gonna,
special meeting
Yeah.
if needed.
Oh, because before the pandemic, we were meeting monthly.
I think this was before I came on board, but I think there was a time where it shifted to every other month. Because that's what it
Correct.
says on the website.
Correct, it shifted, and it was a decision that our board made. Nobody made that decision. We made that decision. I remember that. And it was because it seemed, some people felt that there wasn't enough to do. I felt that there was plenty to do, but people felt that there wasn't enough to do. So what you're saying is, as a board, we just can't decide to, because as a
You
board,
can-
we decided to meet every other month. Now, as,
Yeah, I'd have to look the committee, the mission, and, the information about the committee. It says it meets every other month. So I would have to see what we would need to do, and that perhaps was something that you just weren't involved in. It was done administratively, so.
no,
I'd have to
we
see-
decided, as a
I
board. we
understand, but to formally approve it from an administratively side, I'd have to take a look at that. But I guess the question is, is that a decision that It's not on the agenda today, so we can't make that decision.
So we can put it on the agenda for next month.
We'd have to have an action item
In a special meeting? for
if
next-
it wanted to be a special meeting.
Yeah, I also, I guess, misunderstood. I thought that we were having, like, because that change was hard to make in stone, we were going to just have special meetings every month until the housing crisis was resolved, right? Do we all remember that?
I thought we were meeting monthly.
Yeah. So whatever we need to do, we should probably do that, right?
I'll go with the flow.
Heck
If
yeah.
you want to meet bi-monthly, I'll meet bi-monthly. If you want to meet monthly, I'll meet monthly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we shouldn't table this any longer and all that jazz, so.
So we have to call a special meeting for next month to discuss if we're going to meet monthly?
Well, I mean, you had said you wanted to meet monthly to talk about other items, so there'll be other items on
Right.
the agenda.
Yeah,
But yeah, we need an action item. Like, we can't just, we need to have the board vote on it.
So it could be to vote on approving this
Mm-hmm,
brochure, yeah.
That sounds like our action item.
yes. So we just need to come, get it shortened up. Tim's not here, so he can't tell us, well, that's going to fit on there. This is just how it looks on this paper.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't have his input on how this is designed or where this would go. So I say we table this for next month for when Tim is here. Does that make sense? And in the meantime, for us to take a look to see if there's a few sentences that we can eliminate or make more
Or condense,
concise, yeah.
So if you want to make some of those suggestions, you can certainly send it to Anna or myself in our office, and then we can communicate that with Tim or with the rest of the group. So we can kind of be the keeper of all the comments, if you'd like.
Okay, so maybe, first off, the best thing to do is to ask Tim if this does fit on 2 pieces of paper. Do you know,
Sure.
I'm saying like maybe he's got an idea as to why this looks like this.
Yeah, we only get it in a PDF, so I'm not sure like what program he's using or anything. So yeah,
Right.
we can
Yeah,
look at
'cause
that.
otherwise, I think, I respect Tim's judgment, so I don't think he'd send us this, if he knew it had to be on 2 pieces of paper. So let's get that clarified with him. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I think it makes sense with only 4 people here to
Right.
wait on that.
yes,
Yes.
to have the vote and everything, yes. So we'll just table this and have a special meeting for it next month,
That's fine.
okay? Does that
Yeah.
make sense? Everybody agreeable? Okay. So we'll meet again next month to, hopefully Tim will be here to review this and we'll come up with ideas to make it more concise if that's what's needed. And then,
Or to bring with us our ideas, because we'll have a month coming up to
Yes,
review it. And then
yes.
hopefully, it sounds like the goal for the end of next meeting is to vote on finishing
right,
this
so
and printing
what
it.
Kelly was saying is that she is open for us to offer her ideas. Our ideas, what can be eliminated or made more concise, and then she'll look
We-
at it and ask
we can-
everybody and.
Yeah, we can work with Tim to make those updates in before the next meeting
Yeah,
packet goes
yeah,
out.
so that when we get here next time, maybe it's votable.
Yeah, you don't
Right.
have to wordsmith everything.
Yes, right,
That's a
'cause-
good goal, yeah.
yeah. So, and again, I would just like to make sure we add that student resource for student housing on the
So
bottom
yeah, if you
there.
want to send that information to us, then we
I
can.
will.
Yeah, then we can get that to
I have
Tim.
it chicken scratched here, but I will email that to you. All right. Any more discussion on this handout? We can, I guess, next month also talk about or bring to the table ideas about, okay, now what are we going to do with this? Where are we going to put it? How are we going to promote this? I think this board, it'd be good if this board came up with some creative ideas and how to promote this, so, just come to the next meeting, I would think, with those ideas. Okay? Anything else on the brochure?
This is an idea I'll email you to give to Tim, but I regret not thinking of it earlier. So I used to work at Thrivent, and I think of that every time I look at this. And what I mean by that is it doesn't, like if I'm at a bus stop and I'm busy and I'm tired and I just got done with work and I need help with rental housing, but I don't know where to look, and I see this, I'm not saying we should change this logo because I know we worked really hard on it, but can we like push it down and then at the top say something like renters and landlords' rights, like in big, bold, duh, that's what it is. Because I don't think we get the message across, like it's well organized, but who at a glance is going to look at that and think what this brochure is for? That's kind of something I think, even if it's just, renters and landlords' rights or whatever we want to call it, something along those lines.
It's a good idea, there's plenty of space on that page.
Exactly, and it should take up like at least a third of the page. It should be eye-catching. Doesn't have to be a logo, but it just should be a description. Otherwise, nobody's going to pick it up, and we can put it everywhere.
Good idea. So maybe you can email what you think is a good
Absolutely.
idea to Kelly.
Yep, I will.
Get how this is working.
I will do that. I love it.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other discussion? Okay. Other business. Anybody have anything under this section, other business?
I'm curious about action items we can all creatively brainstorm and maybe spearhead new things, such as opening up people's couches and bedrooms in apartments to their friends who are struggling without penalty. Is that something we could vote on in the future? I'm just brainstorming, but also I don't see the drawbacks to that in a housing crisis where we don't have enough beds for all the bodies that live in the city.
But isn't that something that you're looking at as far as zoning right now as a result of this study?
And there is a certain point where there isn't penalty of having somebody, it depends we do have some requirements with how many people can be unrelated and living in a home together, depending how big the home
Yeah.
is and everything. But at that point, it's more of a health and safety building code issue. And that's something, that's an international building code. So we can help provide some information about like what those guidelines are. But yeah, the housing study is coming. We can talk about this at our workshop.
Yeah, let's just, yes.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I think.
like,
we
I guess-
talked
Hang on
about
to that idea
under
until
that
we-
heading more than.
Yes, it's under the housing study, so we'll just wait for the workshop to bring that up.
Oh, is that still at this meeting?
Yep. it's
Yes.
at
Okay,
the
oh,
year
this
that-
forgive me,
yeah.
I skipped ahead. I
Yeah,
apologize.
that's okay.
Because I have a other, to just bring up, I'm aware, and again, it's about the student housing, it's about parking. I'm aware from a couple of students that get parking tickets all the time. And this is more related to the city than landlords, because there's huge houses in the student housing, and then several people live in these huge houses, and there's not enough parking. And I also heard from a landlord who owns a home in the area that sees cars parked on lawns all the time because people don't want to get tickets. So I've heard.
You can get a ticket for that.
Correct.
That's not legal either.
Right.
What?
Parking
on
on
the lawn.
lawns.
Right, but that's what she sees, people do it.
Yeah.
So, I am wondering if we can get a liaison like we did in 2019 before the pandemic. We had a liaison from the university. I don't know, you weren't here, nobody was here. So I have to take my word for it. In fact, I went back to the agenda in December of 2019, or October, November, December. We had a woman named Gabby Newman. She was our contact person between UWO, Student Housing, and us. She came a couple times to our meetings, and then the pandemic came. And so I would like to start that up again if we could, liaise with UWO so we can actually ask if there's a real parking problem, if that's an issue for students. So what do you think about that idea, about having a liaison from the university, student
On
liaison?
parking?
Not on parking, just on housing, rental housing.
Well, and I don't know if UWO with off-campus housing?
Yes.
I guess I'm not sure how much of an involvement they have with that.
They have a website. There's a website for UWO off-campus housing, and it's through the UWO Student Association website. And they partner with Rent College Pads. They have a whole website for student housing. So it just makes sense to me for them to liaison with us, just like I want to make sure that our information has resources for students on like our Thrive brochure. So I think it's a good partnership between UWO Student Housing and our board. They were interested at the time because they were having problems with landlords, and they brought a couple to our meeting. So do you think we should contact UW and,
It could be somebody with the Oshkosh Student Association.
yes,
They might,
that's how they were,
or the-
where they were from.
Eric Forsgren, the attorney. I might have a contact with them, so I could invite them to the next meeting and see if she's interested.
Okay,
Yeah, we can do that.
could we do that at the special meeting? Is that something?
I mean, anybody can come.
Okay,
Yeah,
If there's something you want to talk about, if they are able to come, let me know, and we
Okay.
can get something on the
okay,
agenda.
so that can be on the agenda, yes. Great. Okay, fabulous.
I would just want to mention something on the other business. This past weekend, there was a Wisconsin Apartment Association conference here in Oshkosh. And about 100 people attended from around the state. And there was an attorney that talked about hot topics in housing, and one of them was retaliation, and went over the issues and went over things like what, so a lot of the issues, and it was very beneficial. It would be great to have something like that,
Oh, yeah.
You couldn't have a seminar go over all landlord-tenant law, but you can go over the hot topics, and it was really good. And it's interesting when you brought that up, because I just went to a seminar where that was one of the main points, so.
And that was two landlords, right?
Yeah,
It was two landlords, okay.
but it's, it's to landlords teaching the law, what,
Yeah,
what
you're-
it is. And there were
But
some things
yeah.
that I was like, wow, I didn't know this, so.
It's good to have a room full of landlords informed as to how to be a good landlord, because otherwise, who's going to teach you, right?
I'm sorry?
I said it's great
Yeah,
that
yeah.
there's somebody teaching a room full of landlords how to be good landlords, because otherwise, who's going to teach them, That's great.
Well, yeah, it's regretfully both landlords and tenants, and particularly tenants, when you hold a seminar on landlord-tenant law, not many people come, It's, there was quite a few in this room, in that room at the hotel. But I don't know, sometimes I think it'd just be good if we could, the attorney was right from Oshkosh.
Oh, wow.
With Kelly Schwab, and she did a great job. And so, I mean, sometimes I think, I've gone back to that landlord-tenant or rental housing day or something like that, to bring things in, and you go over the hot topics, and a lot of them are, and one of the apartments was abandoned cars and parking. you know, how to handle that, because that's a big issue, to know how to get rid of an abandoned car, especially if there's a lien holder on it, things like that. And so, anyways, it's just my 2 cents. There was a seminar, and there's going to be another one in October in Fond du Lac.
Oh,
And
good.
if you wanted to come, you could come.
I would love to, and we should put that on our social media and let the social media guy know.
Well, get on my Facebook page, and you'll be aware of it.
I will.
Or I'll add you something, so. But yeah, there's,
Yeah.
in October, there'll be another one in Fond du Lac, so,
Fantastic.
yeah.
It would be good for renters to have something like that, maybe at the library or something, some kind of little seminar. And that can be a future discussion when we're giving this push,
Well, it's
so.
the old,
if
oh
they are
God, what's the one that UW Extension teaches? Rent Smart, that's a
Yeah.
great course, yeah.
Yeah, that might
Touches
be a
on
way
that
to
stuff.
get this out.
So, and that, hopefully that's coming back around a little bit after COVID.
Yeah, I
you know.
think they had the highest turnout
Yeah,
for
they've
their
got
virtual
An
training.
agenda
Really?
out.
I actually like that in person, because it's just,
Yeah.
That's
Oh, yeah.
usually they go to the room in the library or something like that, you know, so.
Okay, any other business? Then I move to adjourn this meeting.
Oh, I thought we were doing the housing study
We
stuff.
have to adjourn.
We have to adjourn first.
Oh, because
That's a
We
workshop
have to
afterwards.
adjourn, and then we
Cool.
go to the workshop.
okay.
Okay,
Oh, second, or,
I don't think we have a first. Did we have a first?
So moved.
Okay.
Second?
this meeting is adjourned.
Uh,